right. The Minnesota Gophers have been very busy in the transfer portal this offseason. Niko Medved's first year at the helm, his first offseason at the helm, and they're going to have a brand new roster next year with only two scholarship players returning. But they've been busy adding six commitments from the transfer portal. So I thought it would be a great time to look at where they all fit in together, where they go from here, what a potential lineup could look like. There's still a lot of dominoes to fall. The transfer portal is technically still open for 8 more days, which means non-graduate student players can enter the transfer portal only for 8 more days. So once that April 22nd deadline hits, any 4-year players or under cannot enter the portal. It's more complicated than ever with the eligibility rules, but that is still the case that if you're not a grad student, you cannot enter the transfer portal after that April 22nd deadline. Um, so let's look at the Gophers roster and see the work they've done thus far in the portal. So things started. We're going to talk about additions here right first. Um, Isaac Osma and Grayson Grove both announced that they would return. Um, Kai Shinholster announced that he'd stay on 2025 commit from the Ben Johnson era. Um, and walk on Eric Reeder, all signs point to him returning as well. So let's look at what they've done in the portal. The first guy that Ben Johnson, not Ben Johnson, Niko Medved brought back was Jalen Crocker Johnson from Colorado State, followed him. He right now looks like their top front court player. And then he was followed by BJ Omont from Cal, Bobby Durkin from Davidson, Robert Viola from San Jose State, Langston Reynolds from Northern Colorado, and Chancey Willis Jr. from Western Michigan. So, where do they all fit in? As it pertains to the starting lineup, I think the um, most interesting questions right now is what their backcourt rotation looks like. Chancey Willis Jr. from Western Michigan and Langston Reynolds from Northern Colorado have a lot more experience than Isaac Osma. But that was for Willis Jr., that was at the Division II level, the JUCO level, and then Western Michigan. And for Reynolds, that was in the Big Sky at Northern Colorado. So they haven't played in the Big Ten. I am a big Isaac Osma supporter. I think he is a very, very talented player, and I fully expect him to be a big time contributor in the Big Ten. But the fact that Medved and his staff decided to bring in two veteran guards, both of those guys have the opportunity to start. I think Osma has the opportunity to start, and I think that Medved has the opportunity to play a three-guard lineup. A lot like last season, where we saw Lakai Patterson, Mike Mitchell Jr., and Isaac Osma share the floor at the same time. I could see that happening a lot next season with Willis Jr., Reynolds, and Osma. The experience that Willis and Reynolds have, I think, gives them the advantage from day one. Um, but I could see this going multiple different directions. I don't think Reynolds is a true point guard at all. So that honestly might lend better towards him starting. I don't know how much Willis and Osma will play together. I think they're both more ball dominant, but we saw last year Osma did very well playing off the ball. Um, so as of today, there's so many more dominoes left to fall. That's my biggest storyline is how they're going to approach that. We've seen plenty of teams, even most recently like Houston, do really well with three guard lineup. So I would not throw that out the window for something that could happen next year. I totally think that's something Medved could pursue. Um, and then the rest of the starting lineup, I think Bobby Durkin is honestly probably the most surefire starter on the roster. He's just a guy you want on the floor, knockdown shooter, versatile, good defender, good facilitator for his size too. I'd be very stunned if he's not starting every game next year when healthy. Um, and then, like I kind of mentioned, BJ Omot's an interesting one here too because he only played a handful of games last year due to injury. And you might not want to rely on him to be a 35-minute a game guy. So maybe they do play small, real small ball and put Reynolds at the three, maybe Willis Jr. at the two, and Osm at the one with Durkin and Crocker Johnson. That could be an interesting lineup. In the front court, I wouldn't totally discredit Robert Viola from starting. You see his numbers; it doesn't jump off the page, but he competed at the same level as Crocker Johnson last year, and he was a very, very good rebounder, underrated passer, just in an efficient player. So I also wouldn't be entirely surprised if, let's say, they go Durkin at the three, Crocker Johnson at the four, Viola at the five, and then bring Omot and Osma off the bench. Um, but I am very confident in the top seven being Willis Reynolds, Durkins, Crocker Johnson, Viola, Osma, and Omot. But Grayson Grove will be interesting to see how much he improved this offseason. And Kai Shinholster and Eric Reeder, I don't expect them to have much of a big role in year one, but they round out a 10-man rotation. So what else could they do? So we're looking at this right now. Um, Langston Reynolds, Robert Viola, and Chancey Willis Jr. are both technically, or all three technically, are seniors. Willis Jr. had that year at the JUCO level, so he will have the ability to return in 26-27. But as for this year, what everyone cares about the most, they have five roster spots left available. Wes Ennis was a guy the Gophers were in on early, who technically still hasn't committed to a program. He was visiting West Virginia over the weekend. I don't. I wouldn't completely rule out him coming to the Gophers, but especially after landing Willis Jr. and Reynolds, I'd be pleasantly surprised. So, personally, I'm crossing him off my list as likely players to add. But a really interesting one here to monitor is Nolan Groves, the 2025 Minnesota Gatorade Player of the Year from Orono High School, decommitted from Yale over the weekend, and he immediately received interest from Texas Tech, set up an offer or official visit, and he got an offer. But there's also some smoke that the Gophers are interested. He's followed by the whole Gophers coaching staff. 24/7 Sports reported he's receiving interest from Minnesota, and Darren Wolfson reported that he's also receiving interest. So um, that could be an interesting name here because if you throw Nolan Groves into the mix, he's probably a more natural shooting guard. He's not a a super developed physically player. But he would have 4 years of eligibility remaining. He's 6'4", 6'5". I think he's pretty natural two guard, and I mean he almost averaged 35 a game in Minnesota. I think he could honestly sneak into a rotation on the back end. By any means, I'm not saying he's going to be a day one starter, but he could get some real minutes, I think, on a team like Minnesota. And then Jaden Booth is another very interesting player here. He's a Florida Southern transfer at the D2 level, 1 year of eligibility left. Was reports that he's setting up a visit. Really impressive 3-point shooter. He's a guy that could be your sixth or seventh man off the bench and give you some more added depth in that front court. He's really impressive shooter at Florida Southern. Which is a solid D2 program. Um, and don't discredit the D2 players. We saw Parker Fox be able to contribute at the Big Ten level, and we just saw Drake do very well with a Division two roster. Player like Bennett Sturts. So, um, from a team building strategy, I would not count that out just yet by any means. And I think Jaden Booth then would slot into your fourth player in the backcourt. Maybe you opt to redshirt Nolan Groves this season and rely on Booth, a little more veteran guy in year one. So And then another player I know they have some very early minimal interest in is Rice transfer Jacob Dar. Again, not a guy who's going to completely change the outlook of your roster, but a unique player that could back up BJ Omot at the three spot. And he has 3 years of eligibility left. And then MJ Collins, a guy from Vanderbilt that they've also shown a little interest in. Gary Clark from Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I think anyone who looks at this roster would think the Gophers need a little more depth in the front court, which which I don't disagree with at all. Based on a few factors, the way that Niko Medved likes to play, the way that the Gophers roster is currently constructed, I think they might opt to go small and be a versatile defensive team. But they do need a couple big bodies. I think Crocker Johnson and Viola are great rebounders for their size, but they're both 6'8". Gary Clark's another guy who is 6'8". So that could be a guy that we don't see connected right now, maybe that they're pursuing. Get a guy in there who's 6'10", 6'11". That's a little better. They need rim protection. I think they could rebound fine. Um, but you need someone that people are scared to go in there against, and I think that's kind of what the Gophers lacked this last season. Frank Mitchell, Dawson Garcia, and Parker Fox were all good rebounders for the Big Ten, but none of them were really dominant shot blockers. And oddly enough, they were one of the better shot blocking teams in the Big Ten. But you need that presence in there that doesn't make people want to come in the lane. I don't think Gary Clark would provide that. But he would be an interesting addition. So, from my perspective, in this outlook, I think the biggest thing the Gophers need right now is rim protection. Um, I think their top seven lineup. I think their top seven lineup right here with Willis Reynolds, Omot Durkin, Crocker Johnson, Osma, and Viola. That's a Big Ten rotation right there. I'm not saying they're going to compete in the Big Ten for a title by any means, but um, they can be competitive, and we've seen Niko Medved get the most out of his players. Chancey Willis is a really interesting guy. Langston Reynolds, really interesting. Bobby Durkin. Those are their three biggest portal additions, in my opinion. Those are guys. If they take their moment and take their opportunity, they could be breakout players for the Gophers and continue to improve. All three of those guys have improved throughout their career. And then anyone who's watched the Gophers know that what Osma's talent is as well. Crocker Johnson and Viola aren't going to be like NBA players by any means, but those are the guys you need to be competitive in college basketball. And BJ Omot, in his own right, he's a very interesting X factor in this whole thing. Kind of the last 2 years the same way Cam Christie and Femi Odokale were. Um, they might not be the best player on the team, but like Omot has the potential to go out and score 20. He also has the potential, I think, to struggle to compete in the Big Ten on day one. So he's a really interesting X factor to watch in this. I expect Willis and Reynolds and Durkin, like I said, to all be big time contributors. Um, and there's just still a lot of moving parts, and it still might be too early to project what their potential is. But I love the crooks and the roots of this roster. A lot of defensive versatility. Five players that can switch on any screen. Six, you had awesome. Viola is very athletic. I don't know if he'd be able to guard the one, but like these are guys you don't have to hedge on screens. You're going to be able to switch 1 through 5, which is something a lot of teams can't do. And when you're playing these teams with huge front courts with players like Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden at Michigan. They might not be there next year, but there's going to be teams like that with a lot of size and Trey Kaufman ran at Purdue. And I think the Gophers are going to be able to combat that with versatility and shooting. Um, Bobby Durkin, knockdown shooter. Langston Reynolds, impressive shooter. And Isaac Osma, efficient player. Chancey Willis at times, he's your volume guy, I think, here. He might not always be the efficient guy, but he'll get some shots up for you. So I like where they've started here. There's still so many questions left, so many players that they could look to target. Nolan Groves being one of them. Like I said, Jaden Booth from Florida Southern. Those are two big ones to monitor here. But uh, Niko Medved and his staff have been busy, and they've been busy early. There's still a lot that can shake out here, but I appreciate you guys for listening to this video. Hopefully, there can be some more news in the future here, and we'll break it down for you here on the Bring Me the Sports YouTube channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and get notified for any more videos we upload. That's on SI Timberwolves, SI Vikings, SI Twins, and SI Gophers, or your home for Minnesota sports. So appreciate you guys for listening. Drop a like on the video, and we'll see you next time.